and then we'll kick off the meeting. Okay, let's start then. Welcome everyone. It's already 6 p.m., at least on our end here in Europe. So let's give it a go. My name is Konrad. I'm together with Michael and Steve here, and we are just about to start our webinar where we would like to talk about 7 critical moves to successful Agile transformation. A few organizational topics. We have the chat available. There is also Q&A section enabled already. So feel free to type your questions if you would have any during the webinar. We have the reserved slot at the end to answer those. We are also recording the webinar, so it might be, actually it will be possible to get back to it if you'd like to check, I think, what we discussed today. And the last information for the beginning is that this is the first webinar which kicks off the series of the events which we would like to host, as we see quite some interest about scaling Agile. And we also feel that we could contribute to the community by sharing our experience. So more or less on the monthly cadence, we would like to reach out to you and offer some little portions of knowledge on the regular basis. Okay, with that being said, let me tell you a few words about us. By us, I mean about enablers. And here I'm referring to Michael, Łukasz, and myself, together with a few other coaches. We have been working together since 2013 on different around scaling Agile and Scale Agile framework. What differentiates us is the fact that on the day-to-day basis, we're working with organizations and teams where we apply all the practices on the day-to-day practice. What helps us to stay on top of all the trends and new tooling. We mainly dedicate our focus to the large organizations and scaling Agile. And at the beginning of this year, we had a privilege to become a Scaled Agile bronze partner, and we work together with an organization which stands behind Scaled Agile framework. And this is also partly related to the topic of our webinar today. We do have experience in on 4 continents. We had the chance to work in Europe. We have been delivering some trainings and consultancy in Asia, as well as North America and Australia. And on the next slide, you can see quite few of our customers who we had a chance to work with, which are mainly coming from the sector of banking, automotive, insurance, and some of them also from public area. With that being said, I would hand over to Michael to introduce our special guest today.
Yeah, thank you, Konrad. So I must say that this is a very important moment for us, as we've been working with Scaled Agile since it has been first present in Europe, and this is our first webinar with a SAFE fellow, Dr. Steve Maynor, and we are super excited about having him joining our webinar. Dr. Steve Maynor, you could talk a lot about his experience. He's a fantastic executive coach and evangelist of transformational leaders and teaching about high-performing teams. Experience in speaking at DevOps Summit and PMI events. What is more important, he has over 30 years of experience hands-on in VP roles, CTO roles in IT companies of the Fortune 500 companies. So it's a lot of great experience, and furthermore, he's one of the main contributors in the Agile community. If we look at the Scaled Agile framework, very close to the founders of the framework, Dean Leffingwell. So for us, it's a great day to talk about this topic that we have been thinking about for a long time. So what are the critical moves? And we're really happy that Steve will take us through it. So I'll just move slowly to like 2 words about me and Konrad. So we have been with Scaled Agile working since 2013, 2014, applying it first in telecom. And we are just practitioners that had some problems to solve. And we believe that the Scaled Agile framework and several other tools that we have combined together in different contexts have helped quite a lot. So we're really proud where we are. This is a huge milestone for us, and we'd love to share what we have learned throughout the last, it's about 8-9 years basically working. So before we jump in, we'd like to ask you a question. And the question should appear on your screen just in a moment as a survey. Let's see how it goes. We'll give you another, let's say, 30 seconds. Okay. Has everyone had the opportunity? See something bumping up still? Okay. So if we look at the results, we have, let's say, 68% of you have participated, and then we have about 50-50, more or less, success and failure. So I think that's something to consider looking at today. So again, giving space for Steve, he'll take us through the 7 points, and we'll contribute wherever we can. Over to Steve.
Thanks, Michael and Konrad. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the invitation to be with you today. I shared with you guys that my very first engagement when I came to Scaled Agile was teaching a class in Poland. So it's great to be reconnected to that part of the world again. And on your survey results, I would say, based on my experience, not surprising at all. That's pretty consistent with what we've seen over many years as well. All right, so I guess we're going to dive right in. So the setup here is these 7 thoughts around how do you go about in your organization changing that percentage that was just highlighted in the poll. All right, you want to be in the 50% successful, and what we want to see worldwide is more of the successful bar getting much, much longer and the failure bar much, much shorter, right? So we're going to talk about 7 things. Now, of course, these aren't the only 7 things. We probably, Conrad and Michael and I could have put 20 things on this slide in this presentation, but we're going to try to focus on 7 really critical ones that collectively in our experience we've seen really be essential. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, leadership. In SAFe, anybody that understands the Scaled Agile framework, we talk about leadership being the foundation of everything. And it's so true. In fact, it's where I've spent a good majority of my most recent years in research and in development and in consulting. The key to a successful Agile transformation is not so much the technical practices. They're important. But ultimately, those technical practices are only going to go so far if we don't have the right environment for Agile to succeed. Agile is as much a cultural transformation as it is a practice transformation. And what we see so many times in organizations attempting an Agile transformation is they can get the technical teams doing some different things, but it only goes so far and then it hits a ceiling. Because the leaders who control the system that we operate in, and it's not just what the technical teams do, but the overall system, how are priorities set, how are budgets set, what kind of governance and oversight practices do we have? Those are typically in most organizations in the hands of leaders. And if the leaders themselves have not changed their mindsets and their values and principles to align to Agile, they're expecting somebody else to be Agile, but I don't have to change. That's where we run into that 50% failure rate over and over again. We've seen it so many times. Conversely, if the leaders in the organization themselves have embraced and internalized the values and principles as well as the practices of Lean and Agile, and they are leading the organization through their words and their actions through the transformation, we have seen the success rates be exponentially higher. So it's absolutely a critical starting point. And when I work with customers, in my background, that's usually where I begin. I work as high in the organization as I possibly can to see where the leadership team is. Do they really understand what it means to embrace Agile? We're doing a lot of things at Scaled Agile to try to help them, and maybe we can talk about that in the Q&A. So those are my thoughts. Michael, Conrad, I don't know if you had some additional.
I was wondering, Steve, maybe you could share some thought, like, let's say I'm a person that is running the initiative and I feel the leadership is not really getting there. What would you propose, like, as some way of getting in with that thought? Because they heard it, but it's not really happening. They really want it, but they don't know how.
Yeah, 2 critical things. First of all, you can only control what you can control. So you have to be focused on that. So whatever your sphere of influence is, whether it's just a team or a team of teams, whatever it is, embrace it yourself and do your very best to achieve the kinds of results that we all know that Agile can achieve in terms of faster delivery, but higher quality, higher customer satisfaction. And that will create some credibility that you can use as capital to have this conversation. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to gain some skill sets. There's some great resources out there, such as Influencing Up and Influence Without Authority. Those are 2 books by the same authors that I use all the time to help people learn and grow the skills that it takes to develop their influence when they don't have the authority, because they're really influencing people up the organization. And that's a critical skill set for change agents that are trying to help get leaders to understand where they're not quite supporting the transformation.
What we have experienced with Conrad, maybe just to add, in the last few years, we have had the opportunity to kick off initiatives with the management boards, with people that are really decision makers, and we have put a lot of effort into, let's say, massaging that area of the organization And it's an even, I'd say, a Pareto rule of 80-20. Like in the beginning, it's like 80% of the time with the leadership, with the management, and it pays back in the long run. So we can't say the name of the customers we work with, but one of the well-known Polish banks and insurance companies, it all started off in a closed room with people from management, from all fields, and asking questions, people from finance, people from HR, people from sales, so they can open up and really see what can they gain, because they know what they can win, but they still don't know how. So I think if there would be something to add, just really don't give up and try to get in that place, or find someone who can help you get into that meeting and really prepare them for and the expectations.
Yeah, that's a critical point. You want to find, if you can find at least one executive sponsor, right? An executive that gets it. And then, hopefully they will be willing to use their position and authority to influence their peers at the executive level, right? That's a critical tactic that we would also suggest.
At the end of the day, I think leaders are those who put the flag in the sand and enable their teams to do the next step. Mm-hmm. And I believe that could lead us to the next point, mm-hmm. which would tell us, like, when we have the leadership on the right side or with the right mindset, what do we do next?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, second point, getting people on the same page. So there is one of the 4 core values of the Scaled Agile framework is alignment. And we have seen this over and over again. Of the 4 principles, it's probably the one that can really accelerate a transformation if it's done well, but can also just make everything go so slow if you don't have it. So what we're really talking about is think about the totality of organization that you have to have pulling in the same direction in order to get new products out the door and to create the competitive advantage in the marketplace that our organization is trying to create. Well, if the executive leadership has in its mind a strategy, budgets, priorities that are going in one direction, but then through the middle layers of management all the way down to the teams, that imperative gets changed or gets overridden, and now you've got different parts of the organization pulling in different and sometimes opposite directions. Well, the goal of fast time to market and quality are seriously impaired when we don't have alignment, right? So when you look at Scaled Agile, there are so many things that we build into the guidance that are all designed around creating alignment, whether it's the opening parts of every PI planning event, where you get those leaders to speak directly to the development organization to say, this is the vision, this is the direction, this is the strategy, these are the priorities, this is what you want you working on in this period of time. And then there's constant feedback loops through system demos, through the demo at the end, through so many mechanisms in the framework that say, how do we set and maintain that alignment all the way from the top of the organization all the way down to the most junior technician in the organization. That alignment creates speed and it also creates quality. So, alignment is absolutely critical. We've got roles in the organization that also bring some of the legacy roles over from our hierarchies, and we give them the responsibility to, whether it's around the product, around the architecture. So as they execute those roles, then that also helps create the alignment. We've got practices, the visual information radiators that we see at the team all the way up to the portfolio level that we promote and recommend. Another core value that supports alignment is transparency, right? So having all of these things very transparent of what we're trying to accomplish and how we are progressing. Where are we having issues? The more transparent it is, the better it supports alignment. And again, the faster things can get resolved, and the faster we go. And that all connects directly to the success of the development effort.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think what you're saying is just like the essence of how you should do it. That's really important. We are visual as humans, and we need to see it. That's why you call it that we have a vision. It's not because that's the word where it came from. We have a vision. We know, if you know where you want to go and how you're going to measure, you know how to get there, and are you getting there? One of the great things, if we look at the alignment and the cycle of alignment at that, for example, SAFe proposes, we have the PI planning. Most of the people are able to focus for about a quarter, and most of the business initiatives survive a quarter, and you can focus and really deliver something valuable also in the quarter. It's like you have a race that is just a quarter ahead, and keeping motivation and focus and in an environment that is rapidly changing that we function in the longer term is much more difficult. So the alignment for what do we do next? Are we getting there? Does everyone know what's the target we're shooting at? I'd say I sign with both hands. If we get that right, we're getting there slowly. So we have the next one is the point number 3. And I'd love to jump into that one. So if we know what do we want to shoot at and what's going to happen, what do we have to do? How do we measure? What do we do next to start delivering?
Yeah, so we've created the alignment. Now we have to look at how are we actually executing, right? And this goes back to, if we're in an agile transformation, that means we're coming from something else, not agile, to something hopefully agile. And that something else historically in most organizations around the world has been a very traditional hierarchical based, silo based organizational structure. And we form these temporary projects where we pull people from all over the place to try to get some initiative done. And the idea here in an agile transformation is that in SAFe, we talk about what Dr. John Cotter described as the dual operating system, that those hierarchies are important and we don't want them to go away, but the product development part of the organization needs to be in an agile context, very much like a research and development organization. That means in order to innovate and to move quickly, we have to organize and periodically reorganize around the flow of value so that we're eliminating all these handoffs that are inherent with the silo process. And so when we talk about forming agile teams and teams of agile teams, right, we have to do that in direct understanding of what is it that we're trying to build. And what are the skill sets? What are the domains of expertise that are needed to come together to build that new product or that new service and get it to market? And so we bring all those resources together in a virtual organization that we call an agile release train. It's just a team of teams. It's the right people who have all the skills and the decentralized authority to understand what the need is, to align it to the strategy, and to get the product out the door through all the parts of the development process without waiting for the handoffs and delays that get created when you try to move something through our traditional hierarchical silos. Those silos have local optimization. They are optimized for the mission of that silo. They are not optimized for the success of the product. And so as you transit all of those different silos and domains of expertise in our traditional structure, that's where we get tremendous delays. We get everybody kind of trying to redirect it in their own their own interests, and we don't get it out the door as quickly as we can, or with the quality or the customer efficacy. So this is a critical concept in SAFe, is this idea of what is the flow of value? How do we create that value? Who are all the people and experts that we need in that flow? And we give them the ability to actually work together. It's such a critical part of the whole agile process.
Right. Thanks. I think it all starts to build up, right? So we start to see like who does what and how should we deliver together. So moving on to number 4, which is more into the level where you mentioned about so how do we do this? Now we know what we're going to do. Now, how do we do this? And number 4 is about establishing flow and lean thinking. If you could give us your kind of thoughts and the best knowledge, like what should we really focus on? Because there's so much knowledge in the industry, and lean has been around so long. So if we're looking at agile software development or business agility as a whole, how do we work between departments, between functions in the organization? What would you suggest?
Right. So one of the things a lot of people may not know about Scaled Agile is that Dean didn't just lock himself in a room and create it on his own. The framework is a collection of best practices from thought leaders as well as from observations of organizations really doing it in the field. Lean is one of those things where we brought in the entire body knowledge of Lean that's been developed over the last 80 years. I mean, that's got some real history, and some great thought leaders from Don Ryderson to Eli Goldratt to Alan Ward to Tom and Mary Poppendink and so many more who have experimented and consulted and written about these practices. So in SAFe, principle number 6 is the key, and all the things that you see in the practices are based on that principle when we think about lean. And it's the idea of lean is all about creating a consistent flow of value, identifying the things that bottleneck the value, and identifying the wastes in the system. And we eliminate the bottlenecks, we eliminate the wastes, we limit the work in process, right? That's a first critical step. If we're saying yes to everything and totally overwhelming the capacity of the organization, everything grinds to a halt. If you don't believe me, just go out to a freeway at rush hour when there's 100% utilization of the freeway. Nobody's going anywhere. And the same is true in our organizations trying to get products out the door. So we limit work in process. Small batches are really critical, and short queue lengths. Absolutely essential. And having teams and trains focused on one stream of product development and not multitasking across all these projects is also a critical, essential element. And so if we've got everybody understanding that this is how we operate, and we're all looking for bottlenecks of things flowing, of value flowing to the customer, waste in the system, things running over capacity, and we eliminate those, then you're going to see value flowing to the customer. And if customers receiving value quickly, then that is going to be good for our organization, right? Because they want to keep using our products and services.
So this is like a really nitty gritty part of working. This is what you really see. Konrad, could you share like your experiences from the trenches? I know you've been doing a lot, especially in this point and with organizations.
Yeah, so my experience is that this is really counterintuitive. People get often tempted to take a lot because then they feel that when I keep myself busy, I will complete quicker whatever I need to deliver. And they start to switch between topics and cause the delay on the others. So I think this requires some really either very conscious decisions or exactly the support from the process side or the tooling to trigger those right behaviors, let's say. So I'm referring here to limiting work in progress, exactly as Steve said, or working on a small batches to make sure that we stay focused and really contribute to our goal and things which we want to achieve.
Okay, so when we start to be like good in the practices and we feel like it's going to work, so leadership is helping us, we're kind of on the same page, we know what's the aim, we see how we should work together, so we have been reorganized so we don't hand over things. We start to work on the practices on a daily basis, weekly, monthly. Things are happening. What would be the next thing we should really take care of here? And we came up with the point number 5. And if Steve, you could take us through this from your perspective.
So in the framework, one of the foundational elements we call the house of lean, and anybody that understands lean, they've seen different houses of lean, and ours, the first pillar of the house of lean, is actually the same that you'll see anywhere in the lean body of knowledge, and that is respect for people and culture. Products don't build themselves, at least not yet, right? People build products, and oh, by the way, people consume products. So we're all actually in the people business, regardless of what industry that we're in. And so if we want great products and services going out to customers that create customer delight, we need to grow and develop and build and support the people who are actually building those products. We create a great environment, we support them, we help them in the development, which, by the way, is the primary job of a leader. And study after study has shown, right, when you've got people who are in a great environment, highly motivated, highly engaged, and very happy in their work environment, they produce great results. And so this is, again, one of the primary responsibilities of the leader. Are they creating that environment that allows people to do their absolute best, and feel supported, have the psychological safety, to innovate, to create, to take some reasonable risks from time to time, and that's what innovation requires. It's all about, as one of the authors that we use in the framework is retired Navy Captain David Marquet, from his book Turn the Ship Around. He talks about the job of leadership has changed from taking control and attracting followers to giving control, right? Decentralized decision making, and growing leaders, growing other people who can take every level responsibility. And that's how we transform the organization and create that amazing employee experience.
I'd say that it's really incredible how this point really links to point number one. Maybe some of you have heard of the Lewin's law, that the behavior is the function of the personality of the person and the environment. Mm-hmm. In the organization, basically, who sets the environment? If it's a psychological or a physical environment, well, leaders. Mm-hmm. They set the constraints in which we can bring out the best of people, or we can bring out the worst from those people. So mm-hmm. It's a huge responsibility. And I think it's really that's why we put this point number 5. We had quite long discussions about, where should we put this in? Because this is so important. So if we look at it from a perspective, the mantra of take care of people, they'll take care of the product, and that will take care of the customers. It is so true. If we look at the Gallup Institute that speaks about engagement of people at work and how it is just decaying, mm-hmm. It's not so difficult. The first 5 questions of the Gallup 12 questions is directly correlated with retention of people, and it's really easy. The first one is like, do people know what is expected from them? Like, our roles and responsibilities really clear? Do I have tools to use to deliver what I'm supposed to do? Do I have the opportunity to do the best I do every day at work? So am I positioned correctly? Did my leader give me space to learn and develop and use my knowledge, my passion? So in order to position people correctly, you have to understand what are their intrinsic motivators. So what's really inside? It's not just the payroll in most people, especially in IT. IT is a really well-paid kind of sector. So, I mean, there are more things. Do they need more autonomy? Do they want to have a say? Do they want the structure? Is it the relationship? What is it really that makes them feel that they want to really be inside totally in what they're doing and really deliver? And if we look at it from a perspective of the rhythm, like, do I get feedback frequently about my work? Surprise, surprise. And then we have all of the things connected to, do I have any recognition at least once or 2 times a month, right? Do I hear that? Is that happening? So it's not really that difficult. It's rather kind of saying that if I'm a leader, this is what I should do. And these are just some of the things that we mentioned here that are worth to reach out a lot of books and a lot of work it's just that it's not being used. So common sense is not common practice. And that's what we're thinking of here, to remind you that if you want to go far and you want to have retention of talent, you really have to create a flawless employee experience. All right, so moving number 5. So we're all happy, we're really engaged, but we have the nature of what's happening in our industry, and how should we approach evolving from we started, and what do we do next? If you could, Steve, help us with this point.
Yeah, so I love this idea of fail fast, learn fast, and we all have such a great example of exactly what this is teaching, right from the headlines of what's happening here in the US with the SpaceX program led by Elon Musk. So if you think about our past space program for decades, going all the way back in the 1960s, everything was about big projects, long development efforts. It would take years to get a rocket on the launch pad. And it was all about, we want to make sure it doesn't blow up, right? Blowing up rockets is bad. And so, and of course, if there's humans in it, it's bad anytime. But if you look at what Elon's taking a completely different approach here. And the idea is, we're going to change our development process first, so that they are literally building rockets at an unbelievable pace. It seems like every week they're rolling out a new rocket off on the launch pad. They're using 3D printing to build rocket parts. Unbelievable. And they launch a rocket and it comes back down and it doesn't land just right and it blows up. And what does Elon say? That's awesome. We got all the data that we needed. They're running experiments. So in an R&D environment, we all understand, if you understand the scientific method, right? Every experiment is designed to advance our learning. And even if the experiment, what we would traditionally call fail, it doesn't produce the ultimate results, but it produced learning. And so we are literally learning our way progressively, to the ultimate correct solution. So how fast we can get products to market, it's how fast can we learn. And if we're going to learn fast, we have to be comfortable with the fact that some of those experiments aren't going to work. And we take the reasonable risks, and we have to be okay with it. And it's one of the most radical transformations of an organizational culture inside of our own NASA government agency that's been totally disrupted by this different mindset that Elon has brought into the program. And I think it's a perfect model of what every organization should be prepared to embrace as they do an agile transformation that's designed to rapidly develop new products. You have to run lots of experiments, right? And some of those experiments are not going to work, and you have to be okay with that. It's all about the learning, right? We learn and we do the continuous, plan, do, check, adjust cycle and apply that learning to the next experiment, right? That's the key. We don't keep doing the same mistakes over and over again, but we have to make the next one better and better and better and better. And then we finally get to the one that is the minimum viable product that we can get out to our customer will actually pay for, and we can start monetizing. And then we get their learning, their reactions of actually using it, the real customer using it. That continues to evolve the product. Anybody doesn't believe that? Pick up your smartphone, right? Go back to the very first iPhone and how it's evolved since then. The first one did not have half the features that you use every single day, but they got enough features into the hands of customers. It totally disrupted an entire industry. I was reading an article yesterday about, at the time the first iPhone came out, Nokia was the global juggernaut of cell phone technology. Where are they now, right? So it's still around, but not the leader in that industry that they once were. So this is a critical part of an agile transformation, is this ethos of fail fast and learn fast, and apply that learning to the next experiment.
What would be worth adding here, I think, is that Agile, and to be precise, safe, has multiple feedback loops implemented in its own. So we are very effective from the very short cycle of the daily, which is the very sort of rapid feedback loop, until the inspect and adapt event, where we look back on the longer period of time, and we can apply improvements, learning on the different levels of the organization.
Right. And that's a contrast with the old project. And I've been a PMP since the 90s, so I understand project management discipline. But you think about our traditional project management process, where was that opportunity to learn, cycle back, and adjust the plan based on what we learned? It's not part of the process. And so we had this very rigid plan. Well, if we're halfway through the project and we learn that what we had thought at the beginning is not going to be true because the cone of uncertainty was too big, well, how do we adjust? Well, typically that is cancel the project, change orders, cost overruns, schedule overruns, somebody gets fired, right? I mean, we've lived that many, many times in our background, right? And that's because the system was set up to, for failure. And we're improving the system of how we do this kind of development work.
And just to show how consistent all of those points are, we talked about people and the right culture and that seamless experience, which is pretty much also about creating the right environment for people to be able to fail and learn, or take a learning, that they wouldn't be afraid and hide and pretend that everything is fine, while I know that things could have gone better.
Okay, we're getting really good questions. We'll have the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please dock it into the chat. Thank you for the questions that are there. We see them, and we'll just leave some space for the discussion in a moment, and then we'll try to connect. Some of the questions need the answer of all of the 7 moves, and then we can move forward, okay? Steve, if you could take us through the last one.
Absolutely. So when Dean first created our company, years ago, he made a very deliberate decision that the way we were going to get this information, this knowledge out to the broadest numbers of organizations across the world was to really invest in the organizations, the coaches across the globe who had the background and experience and just needed some additional tools, some additional patterns, some additional learnings when they're working with customers who are trying to do Agile, but do it at a much larger scale than 1 or 2 teams. And that model was to basically create a fan-out approach where we invest in great companies. And right now we have 450 of these great companies across the world, as well as literally hundreds of thousands of individual practitioners that we support. And so one of the patterns that I strongly recommend anytime I'm working with a customer that's beginning the process is, look, this is going to have all kinds of implications to your organization. You're going to learn new language. You're going to learn a new process. It's going to disrupt the culture. Your technology may have to change because your technology may be so tech debt ridden that it's the problem. And so how are you going to address that? Organizations are venturing into unknown territory if they're just now beginning their transformation. And we strongly recommend don't do that blind. Yes, we've written a great framework. We love it. We pour our heart and soul into it. But just reading these articles back here are not going to be sufficient. It'll give you a little knowledge. It doesn't necessarily give you understanding. Understanding comes from experience. And so first recommendation when I'm working with any customer is, who is the experienced group of people you're having come alongside you that have been there? They've seen organization after organization after organization go down the same path. They know how to guide you past the pitfalls, help you avoid things that are going to cost you time and delay and pain, and right. You want to avoid those things and get you straight to the successful patterns that they've seen work and work well. And we wanted to have as many of those kinds of organizations in the world as we possibly could. And that's why we created the partner program, so that we could say, hey, we know this organization, we know they've got great people, they've got the experience, you should go talk to them. And that's why we support organizations like Enablers and webinars like this, because if they're succeeding, then our goal of really making a difference and changing the world, it really has a shot at happening, because it doesn't just depend on Scaled Agile. It really is being implemented every single day and being guided every single day by people that have that experience and have the understanding.
Thank you, Steve. If we look at this from a perspective of a coach, like if you look at it from a perspective of a doctor, would you like to go to a doctor that during the surgery is trying to read the book and say, I think I know how to do this, I don't need any help, I'll get through it? Or would you go to a mechanic that says, yeah, I think I know how to fix the car, you'll be safe, it'll be okay? So sometimes working with a coach from a perspective of being a coach and of a perspective of being coached by someone throughout my career, I have seen that it helps people to understand the pattern much faster. They have seen things so many times that they can get to seeing the same data, they can go through the fail fast and learn fast much faster, so they need less iterations. So if you look for a economic outcome of this, is it worth to deliver with this team that is 100 people in 9 months or 12 months? How much does 100 people cost the company for a quarter if we could do it a quarter faster? Yeah. Right? So if we look for a return on investment or explaining it to anyone, why is it worth, then it's how it should go. So I'd say having a good coach it can be a game changer. I work also in the startup industry, and you have a runway of money and you have to get to a milestone, and it's about survival sometimes. And the question is, like, can we find someone that has been there and achieved something that can help us succeed, right? And sometimes you don't have time to figure it on your own. And you can learn on the way. So 5 minutes with someone that is very wise and experienced can give you more than weeks of reading books and figuring it out on your own. So I think that would be kind of the last thing we could add. Konrad, how are you looking from a perspective as an expert Agile coach in your company and supporting many transformations in the last years?
Well, I think sort of everyone need that sparring partner. And I believe you know the best how many hours we talked about different situations and sometimes different challenges that we have been dealing with. So it's not in a way that there are any people who know that all and who are sort of the brightest minds in the world. I believe everyone needs that different perspective and support. So I really find it pretty critical.
All right. So if we could just move to a wrap up, and it's all connected. It's not linear, but Steve, if you could just tell us in a nutshell what we have heard, what should be the takeaways here?
So the key takeaways is really this, and again, as I said in the beginning, we probably could have had a much longer list, but we really wanted to get down to the core critical pieces that anyone who has an ability to lead or influence an organization that's just beginning their transformation, these are some areas that you want to focus on. And the main takeaway that I hope, if you didn't get anything else from all this, get this: we are now 20 years past the Agile Manifesto, and we are 80 years past the dawn of Lean. There is so much information and experience and guidance and tooling out there that's designed to help an organization get through that transformation process along every front, whether that's the technical front, the leadership front, the organizational front, the practices front. There's so much richness of people who've gone before, who have learned and who have found the successful patterns. Learn from the patterns. Learn from the guidance in knowledge bases like the framework. Learn from the coaches that have been there, been down that path so many times. Organizations, I'll be honest with you folks, Agile transformation, if you're just now beginning the Agile transformation process, you are behind the curve. You're way behind the curve. If you look at what industry leading organizations are focused on now, it's on things like digital and artificial intelligence and machine learning and neural networks and quantum computing. And I'm talking about, just labs. I'm talking about brand names, commercial companies that you and I would recognize today that are leveraging these technologies. And what they will say is Agile was assumed. I mean, it's the only way you can go to any of these things is by to have this process. So, don't fight it or take it longer than it needs to be. Get through the Agile transformation process as quickly as you can, because I promise you there's more change ahead beyond that. And the fastest way you can do that is learn from the patterns, learn from the experience, and get through it as quickly as you can.
All right. So I think it's a fantastic knowledge in a nutshell. I think we could talk for ages, but we don't have ages. Thank you, Steve, for spending time and putting this all together. I think it's something we have dreamt of to talk about this topic and have someone as special as you in this event. I hope everyone has a few takeaways or many takeaways. Before we end up, we have still the Q&A session, so please stay with us. And what is?
Yeah.
Okay, here it is, the Q&A session. I hope this will work as it's intended. So we'll start with the top questions, and if you have anything, just bump it in. We'll see how many we can cover.
You bet.
So the first one is, what OKRs and KPIs would you use for different phases of Agile transformation?
So two things I'd recommend you look. We've got articles on OKRs and KPIs in the framework. Go reference those. Also metrics. There's also other great resources like the information from the DevOps handbook, the Dora metrics. Those are all great metrics. But here's the key thing: if I'm a company that is investing in this, if I'm an executive, to me, Agile is not the end goal. The end goal is a better business results. And so I would coach a company to be more focused on what are the business OKRs and KPIs from your product that you're trying to achieve to align to your strategy. And then let's measure and evaluate if the change in practices are helping you achieve those metrics, because that's the end game. Agile's not the end game. It's a means to an end of better competing better in our markets. So that's where I would, and of course, those OKRs and KPIs are going to be very customers and company specific.
Okay, Konrad, would you like to add something here?
Well, I think I couldn't agree more.
It's hard to add something after such a good answer. All right, so we'll jump to the next one. Getting leadership engaged is one step. How to keep them on the positive track, let's say also after 6-9 months.
Yeah, so at some point the motivation has to be intrinsic amongst the leadership team, and so they can't be dragged down the path. At some point the motivation has to come from within them, and that's why we're building brand new products like our new leadership development program that we're just about to bring to market, is to help them understand the different mindsets and the different behaviors and the different competencies that they need to lead in the digital age, which is very different than the skills that got them to where they are. And so we want to help them with that. And once they have internalized and are modeling the behaviors and mindsets that demonstrate to the rest of the organization this was what it means to be a lean and agile organization, then you don't have to worry about them staying on the positive track, because they're now leading, they're driving, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're leading the organization, right? They're not being led by, and that's the key shift. And I've seen it happen in many organizations, and you can just tell the difference of whether leaders are actually leading the change and taking the organization where it needs to go, or whether they're being drug along. And that, again, same things we talked about earlier. Start with at least one person who gets it in the leadership ranks, have them influence their peers, and help their peers get to that same point is one of the best strategies I'd recommend.
I think we should write a quote on that. That's a really good one. Let's jump to the next one, because there are a few more questions and we'd like to answer as many as possible. So what about the risk of fail fast, learn fast being the bucket of cold water that'll make the C-level to go back out from the agile transformation idea?
So this is a fundamental indicator that C-level leader doesn't get it yet. They're still in the fixed mindset of the old way of working. And if that's where their mindset is, then when they see these new ways of working promoted by Lean and Agile, we shouldn't be surprised that they have this reaction. That's why the one of the main goals, and that's what I spend most of my time with, is the senior level leaders of an organization, is to help them themselves understand. They have to improve their knowledge. They have to understand why this principle is so critical, and why it's not just better, but it's essential for them to survive in the digital age. And we get them to that point. So we get them from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, so they're open to learning. Once they're open to learning, then we present them with the evidence that says these new ways are proven. They're being used by the industry leaders in every industry segment. And we can point specifically to their competitors and how they're performing versus their own organization is performing. We tie it all back to business results. This isn't about theory. This isn't about the agile crowd. This is about our organization surviving, and not just surviving, but thriving in our markets. That helps our customers. It helps our employees. It helps the world. It helps society, right? It starts with them, but they can't hold on to the old ways. They've got to be willing to cross the bridge, right? And internalize. Now it comes naturally from them. And once they do, you don't have to argue with them on fail fast, learn fast, because they get it. And they're the ones that are now teaching it to the rest of the organization.
I just underline the word fast here. So I think the little trick is to find a way to do those experiments with relatively small cost, to stay in the evolutionary mode and evolutionary change rather than revolutionary. We do not want to fall down from the 10th floor if we have to. We probably want to fall down from one step and then take a quick learning.
Yeah, it has to be fast. Anybody that has any understanding of the larger business context across the globe, in every market, in every industry, understands that institutional, established market leaders that are stuck in the old ways of working are being disrupted every single day, both by new entrants, new startups. Michael, you understand this, and understanding the startup world, right? That startups that are able to move fast, grab customers from you quickly, but also other large organizations that aren't startups, right? You get Amazon coming into your market, right? That will keep executives up and worrying big time, because you've got that kind of power, and they get these concepts. Fail fast, learn fast. I guarantee you Amazon gets it, Google gets it. Right? Other organizations that are these large successful organizations, they get it. And if they're coming after your customers and you're not willing to come across to these new ways of working, watch out.
Right. So we're about out of time. We have space for one more question, which is quite an interesting one. Maybe we could have it. So is SAFe appropriate for every IT organization or for only some specific ones? For which ones, if yes?
So here's the way I would answer. It's not about every kind of IT organization. SAFe is being used in every industry and every part of the world that you can think of, right? We've got that evidence. We have over 20,000 of the global 2,000 organizations that are using SAFe today. So it's got ubiquity. The question I think I would point out here is there are some organizations that if I say, would I tell anybody not to use SAFe? In terms of the total sets of practices in SAFe, if you're a small, Michael, going back to your world, if you're a small startup, there are some things that are useful in SAFe because they're known industry practices. So what we say for an Agile team, if you're a small company of 20 people that's got 2 Agile teams, our Agile team practices are yes, please use them. Why? Because we borrowed them from the rest of the world. That proved what does a healthy Agile team look like. The totality of SAFe, however, I would not recommend using it because it's too much overhead for a small organization like that. You don't want to create all the ceremony and roles and things like that. So what I would say is use the parts of SAFe that make sense for where you are and the size that you are and where you are in the transition process. SAFe is a collection of success patterns. It's not a methodology. So find the patterns that work, use them, and as you grow, as you get into other areas, you may find other patterns that are useful, right? So that's the advice that I would give is almost in all cases, there's some part of it, maybe not the whole of it, that you could find useful in your organization, IT and non-IT. There's a lot of business stuff in here as well that could be useful to your finance organization, your HR organization, your marketing organization. We've seen that pattern out in the world as well.
Yeah, just to add in one sentence, I'd look at the context of the company, as Steve mentioned, and what problem do we want to solve? And then choose the practices. And if we honestly approach it from that perspective, and I believe there are many honest people in the market that can help you, but there are also some people just want to sell. Mm-hmm. So SAFe, if you just go from the perspective, is this tool good for me? I'd rather ask so what problem do you want to solve? Mm-hmm. And then we can just see if we could find things and tailor. And it's like a book, like you just have to decide what do you want to cook and we'll show you how to cook it. So I think that's how we could go. So we're basically out of time. Huge thanks for all the questions. If someone would like them answered, we can go offline. Contact me on LinkedIn. I love to have a conversation and see how we could talk. And
Michael, I'd also say if there are any specific for Scaled Agile or for me, I always do this. I always offer, if we didn't get to a question that is one that I need to answer, just send them to me. I'll be happy to respond and send them back to you so you can send them out to your audience.
Okay, fantastic. So coming back to what we have now, we have the next event coming up, which is with our partner with Kegon. I think we have some people in the meeting today from Kegon. I hope we do. So I'm really happy to announce Konrad and René will be presenting soon in May. So we'll be sending it out, the information to you guys. And just before you leave, please don't leave yet. We have a short question connected to, out of the things we spoke about today, and how do I change this? Stop sharing results. Will I be able to do this or not? Oops. How can you help?
I'm looking at it now as well.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, now.
Yes, thank you. Which of the presented 7 critical moves would you like to explore in details? So the question is about, if we're able to talk soon, what would you like to hear? And we could drill down and spend more time and deliver something cool for you guys. So please answer. And it'll be great kind of information for us. Where should we put the next step? Yeah, 24 answers and growing. 30 out of 46. 33. No pressure. All right. Slowly getting there. Another 10 seconds. If your hand is shaking, just choose something that's close to your heart. All right. End of voting. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Someone still answering.
In the meantime, maybe I think we had a great participation rate. So thank you everyone who took time to stay with us. I see people who are pretty familiar names who we stay in continuous chat. I see a lot of new names from different areas, not only from Poland and Germany. So I'm glad to see that. And I'm sure we'll have many opportunities in the future to see each other again.
So one final thank you for Steve and your time and contributing. It was something we thought about for a long time, and we're super happy we made it, and that you could contribute to our community. And you're always invited. Thank you again.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.